The night was quiet, the kind of quiet that made every sound louder. The wind moved through the tall corn and the sky was dark with heavy clouds. A farmer named Daniel walked across his land, carrying a lantern in one hand and a worn stick in the other. He was checking the fields as he did every evening, making sure no animal had broken in. At first, everything seemed normal. But then, at the far end of the field, his eyes caught something strange. A shape was lying in the dirt, half hidden by the cornstalks. Daniel stopped, raised the lantern higher, and frowned. It looked like an old sack, tied shut with thick rope. He thought maybe someone had dumped grain, or maybe some hunter had left a trap. But then the sack moved. Daniel froze. The lantern light shook in his hand. He leaned closer, trying to listen. The wind was soft, but beneath it he heard a faint sound. A voice. "Please," the voice whispered from inside the sack, weak and broken. "Please don't send me back." Daniel's heart started to pound. His first thought was that someone had been kidnapped and left here. He dropped to one knee, pressing his hand against the rough fabric. The sack trembled as if something alive was trapped inside. He pulled out his small knife and cut through the rope. The sack slowly loosened, and as he opened it, a pale hand slipped out. Not the hand of a man, not the hand of any farmer or worker he had ever seen. The skin was almost glowing, faint blue marks running along the veins like light under glass. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He pulled the sack open wider, and there she was. A woman, but not like any woman he had ever seen. Her hair was silver as moonlight. Her eyes glowed softly like embers in the night, and strange symbols burned faintly across her skin. She looked weak, shaking, barely able to sit up. "Please," she whispered again, her eyes wide with fear. "Don't. Send me back." Daniel stumbled backward. His mind raced. He had heard stories, wild tales told in town, about strange lights in the sky and people who claimed to see things they shouldn't. He had always laughed at those stories, but now one of those things was lying in his field, begging him for help. For a moment, he thought about running. He thought about leaving her there, pretending he had never seen her. But the way she looked at him stopped him. Her eyes were not the eyes of a monster. They were the eyes of someone terrified, someone who had suffered. "Who are you?" Daniel asked in a shaky voice. She opened her mouth to answer, but then coughed hard, her body trembling as if every breath was painful. Daniel looked around quickly. The night suddenly felt heavier. The clouds above shifted, and for a brief second, a sharp flash of light moved across the sky. It wasn't lightning. It wasn't natural. Something was watching, searching. Daniel knew he couldn't leave her there. With a grunt, he bent down and lifted her out of the sack. She was lighter than he expected, as if her bones carried no weight. She clutched at his shirt weakly, her glowing eyes fixed on him. "Don't let them take me," she whispered again. "Who?" Daniel asked, but she only shook her head, fear etched deep into her face. The farmer carried her toward his barn, each step heavier with doubt. His land had always been his pride, his safe place, but tonight it felt dangerous, exposed. He looked over his shoulder again. The fields were empty, yet he felt the presence of something hidden, something that wanted her back. Inside the barn, he set her down on a pile of hay. She curled up, pulling the sack around her like a blanket, her body shaking as if cold. Daniel lit another lantern and placed it nearby. In the warm glow, the strange markings on her skin grew brighter, shifting slowly like moving rivers of light. Daniel had no words. He had never seen anything like it. Part of him wanted to run into town, call for help, tell someone what he had found. But another part of him knew what would happen if he did. The government, the military, maybe even the very thing she was running from, they would come and she would be taken away. Her glowing eyes looked at him again, soft and pleading. "Please," she said one last time, her voice almost breaking. "Don't send me back." Daniel stood in silence, torn between fear and compassion. He had found something, or someone, that should not exist. Yet here she was, on his farm, asking for protection. The night outside grew darker, the wind stronger, and somewhere far above the clouds, A faint hum echoed. Daniel clenched his fists. He didn't know who she was or why she was here, but one thing was clear. His life would never be the same again. The barn was quiet except for the soft sound of the lantern flame. Dust floated in the air, catching the orange light, and the smell of hay mixed with the cold night air. Daniel stood near the door, his hands shaking slightly as he watched the strange woman curl into the corner. She looked so fragile, yet something about her filled the whole barn with an energy he had never felt before. Her skin glowed faintly, symbols moving like rivers of light under her flesh. She pulled the rough sack tighter around herself, but no cloth could hide what she was. Daniel cleared his throat. "Who are you?" His voice came out louder than he meant, and she flinched. For a long moment she said nothing. Then, with a weak voice, she whispered, "They will find me. You must not let them." Her words sent a chill through Daniel. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Who's looking for you?" Her glowing eyes met his. Fear was written across her face, but there was also trust, like she wanted to believe he would protect her. Finally, she answered, "Hunters. They take people like me. They use us. If they find me again, I will not escape." Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to believe he was dreaming, that this was just some story made up in his tired mind. But she was here, breathing, trembling, and nothing about her was human. He set a small cup of water near her. She reached for it with shaking hands, drinking as if she had been starved for days. When the cup slipped, Daniel caught it quickly. Their hands brushed, and for a second, he felt heat. Not fire, but something alive, like energy pulsing beneath her skin. "You're not from here, are you?" Daniel asked softly. She shook her head. "I am not from your world." The words hung heavy in the air. Daniel turned, pacing across the barn, rubbing his face with both hands. Every story he had ever laughed at came rushing back to him. Bright lights in the sky, people who swore they had seen ships he had never believed. Until now. "Why my farm?" Daniel muttered. "Why here?" "I did not choose," she said quickly. "They dropped me here. I escaped their ship when it was weak. They did not want me to live. The sack was meant to hide me until they returned." Daniel froze. The thought hit him hard. Someone had tied her up and thrown her into his field. Like garbage. Not just someone, but something powerful enough to travel across the stars. The barn suddenly felt too small, too fragile. He looked toward the cracks in the wooden walls, half expecting lights to appear outside at any second. "You need to leave," Daniel whispered. "If they come here, they'll burn this place to the ground." Her eyes widened with panic. "If I leave, I die. If I go back, I suffer. You do not understand what they do. Please, I beg you." Her voice cracked as tears slid down her silver skin, glowing faintly in the lantern light. Daniel's heart twisted. He had never been a cruel man, but he was not a fool either. Helping her meant danger, not just for him, but for his land, his life. Yet walking away felt impossible. He crouched beside her. "If I hide you, if I protect you, they'll come after me too. Do you understand that?" Her trembling hand reached for his, gripping weakly. "I know, but you are my only chance." The silence stretched. Daniel stared at her hand, at the strange glowing marks that pulsed like veins of fire. Every instinct told him to run. But every piece of his heart told him that leaving her to die would make him less than human. At last he pulled a rough blanket from a shelf and placed it over her shoulders. "Rest here tonight. We'll figure something out in the morning." Her lips curved into the faintest smile, as if even this small act of kindness gave her hope. She closed her eyes, her breathing slow but steady. Daniel turned away, leaning against the wooden wall, staring at the cracks of night sky outside. He could not sleep. His mind spun with questions. Who were these hunters? How far would they go to find her? What had he brought into his life? Then he noticed something else. The symbols on her skin glowed brighter in the barn light, and one of them, just one, looked disturbingly familiar. It resembled a mark he had seen carved into a stone near the old riverbed years ago, a mark no one in the town could explain. His breath caught. What if she had been here before? What if this was not the first time her kind had come? A faint hum rolled across the night, low and deep, like thunder that wasn't thunder. Daniel's head snapped up. He pushed open the barn door and stepped, outside, his eyes scanning the dark sky. Far above, hidden behind the clouds, something moved. He swallowed hard, gripping the doorframe. Inside the barn, the alien woman stirred, whispering in her sleep. They are close. Daniel shut the door tight, his heart pounding. Whatever secrets she carried, they were not hers alone anymore. By helping her, he had stepped into a world he did not understand, and there was no way back. The morning sun never felt so heavy on Daniel's farm. The rooster crowed, cows stirred in the distance, but Daniel's eyes were fixed on the barn. Inside, the strange woman still rested, her silver hair spread across the old blanket, her chest rising and falling in uneasy sleep. Daniel tried to do his chores, but his mind refused to leave her side. Every time he lifted a pail of water or fed the chickens, his ears strained for sounds beyond the ordinary, a hum, a roar, or voices that did not belong. By noon, she stirred. Her glowing eyes blinked open, darting around as if she had expected to wake up in chains again. Relief touched her face when she saw Daniel. You did not leave, she whispered. Daniel shook his head. I gave you my word, but you need to tell me more. Who are these hunters? Why are they after you? Her voice trembled as she answered. They are not human. They take life from other worlds. To them, people are tools, nothing more. They break, they use, they throw away. I escaped when their ship was damaged. Daniel sat on the haystack opposite her. Why my farm? Out of all the places in this world? Why here? Her eyes lowered. I did not choose. I fell. The sack was their way to mark me. If they return, they will track it. They always track what belongs to them. Daniel's jaw tightened. Belongs to them. The words made his stomach twist. Before he could ask more, a sound split the quiet. A faint rumble rolled across the sky, different from thunder, deeper, steadier. Daniel rushed outside, shielding his eyes against the sun. High above, streaks of light carved across the blue sky, moving too fast to be planes. His heart froze. The woman appeared beside him, gripping the barn door frame for balance. Her face turned pale, the glow of her markings trembling faintly. They are here. Daniel swallowed hard. How do you know? Because, she whispered, I can feel them. The lights grew closer, splitting into two smaller shapes. They moved across the clouds, hovering, searching. The hum in the air deepened until Daniel felt it in his chest. Panic surged inside him. His farm, his quiet life, everything he knew, was now part of a hunt that had nothing to do with him, yet everything to do with her. He turned sharply. Back inside now. She obeyed without argument. Inside the barn, Daniel quickly shoved old tarps and feed sacks over her, trying to hide her glow. She lay still, pressing her hands against her skin as if trying to dim the light. The hum outside grew louder. Shadows swept across the field. Through a crack in the barn wall, Daniel saw a strange craft glide low, its surface smooth, shifting like liquid metal. It had no wings, no propellers, just silent movement that cut through the sky like a predator. Daniel's mouth went dry. He dropped the lantern to the ground and gripped his stick like it would save him. But what could a stick do against this? The woman's voice shook as she whispered, If they see me, they will not leave without me. They will burn this place, your land, everything. Daniel clenched his jaw. Then we make sure they don't see you. For long minutes the craft circled. Daniel stood frozen, sweat rolling down his neck, his eyes never leaving the cracks in the wood. The glow beneath the tarp pulsed softly, and every time it brightened he prayed it wouldn't be noticed. Finally the sound began to fade. The hum lifted into the sky, growing distant. The craft moved toward the horizon until it was nothing more than a glimmer. Daniel exhaled sharply, his knees weak. He dropped onto the hay, burying his face in his hands. But before he could feel relief, the woman spoke again, her voice soft but certain. This was only the first. They never stop with one. Daniel lifted his head slowly. What do you mean? She sat up, her silver hair falling around her glowing face. When they hunt, they come in waves. One searches, others follow. And when the hunters come, they bring fire. The weight of her words pressed heavy on Daniel's chest. He had faced storms, sickness, and hunger before. But nothing had prepared him for this. A chase that stretched beyond the stars, now running across his land. The night would not be safe. The day would not be safe. His farm was no longer just his. Daniel stood, his eyes sharp now, his decision firming with each heartbeat. If they're coming in waves, then we need to be ready. Her glowing eyes searched his face almost in disbelief. You would fight for me? Daniel gripped the barn door and looked out at his land. This is my farm, my home, and no one, human or not, takes from me without a fight. For the first time, a flicker of hope lit her face. But behind that hope, fear remained. She knew the hunters were ruthless, and one farmer with a stubborn heart might not be enough. Outside, the sky darkened as storm clouds gathered, but no storm on earth felt as dangerous as what was coming. The hunt had begun, and the farm was no longer just a farm. It was a battlefield waiting for its first strike. The storm clouds thickened above the farm, but Daniel's mind was heavier than the sky. He sat on a wooden stool inside the barn, his lantern casting long shadows across the hay. The woman sat across from him, her glowing eyes dimmed with exhaustion. Outside, the air buzzed faintly with a sound that didn't belong to Earth, as if the sky itself was warning them. For a while, they were silent. Daniel's heart still raced from what he had seen, the silver ship gliding above his land, the hunters searching. He rubbed his rough hands together, unsure if helping her was saving his life or destroying it. Finally, he spoke. If I'm risking everything for you, I need to know the truth. Who are you, really? The woman hesitated. Her trembling fingers traced the glowing symbols on her arm, as if the marks themselves were part of her story. Then she looked up, her voice soft, but heavy. My name is Saris. I was taken from my people when I was still a child. For many years, I was their prisoner. They used me for their machines, for their wars, for things I cannot even explain in your words. I escaped once and they dragged me back. This time I will die before I return. Daniel's stomach twisted. He had heard stories of cruelty in his world, wars, prisons, broken lives. But something about the way she spoke, the quiet pain in her voice, made his chest ache. How did you escape? He asked carefully. Her glowing eyes shimmered with memory. Their ship was weak after a battle. I broke my chains, found the sack they kept for bodies, and crawled inside. When the ship was close to your sky, I cut myself free and fell. They thought I was gone, but they always come back for what they claim as theirs. Daniel leaned back, the stool creaking under his weight. He stared at her, seeing not just an alien but a person, someone who had suffered, someone who was fighting to live. You're saying they'll keep coming? Daniel muttered. Yes, she whispered. And if they find me here, you will not survive. Silence stretched between them. The lantern flickered. A mouse scurried across the hay, then vanished into the shadows. Daniel's mind screamed at him to send her away, to save his land, his life. But when he looked at her, weak, broken, yet still alive, he felt something stir inside him. He thought of his wife, gone many years now. He thought of the loneliness that filled his nights, of the silence that weighed on him like stone. And now here was someone not human, yet more human than anyone he had met in a long time. You're not safe out there, Daniel said finally, and I can't leave you, not after what I've seen. Saris blinked, surprised. You would protect me? Daniel gave a short laugh, though it was heavy with tension. I'm just a farmer. I don't have weapons. I don't have soldiers. But this land is mine. And if they want to take you, they'll have to come through me." For the first time, a small smile touched her lips. It was faint, almost fragile, but it reached her eyes. "Your people, they are stronger than I believed." Daniel shook his head. "Most people would run. I'm just too stubborn to let strangers burn my farm." Her laugh was soft, almost musical, though it carried sadness. She shifted closer, her glowing hand brushing his arm. The heat of her touch was strange but not frightening. Instead, it filled him with a warmth he hadn't felt in years. "I will not forget this," she said quietly. "In my world, we honor those who stand beside us even when they are afraid. You are not like the others who captured me. You listen." Daniel swallowed hard. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But tonight, in the barn, something unspoken passed between them. Not love, not yet, but trust. A fragile bond forming in the middle of fear. Outside, a low hum rolled across the sky again. Both of them froze. Daniel moved to the barn door, peering out into the night. Far in the distance, across the hills, faint lights flickered, moving steadily closer. "They're spreading out," Saris whispered, her voice shaking. "The hunt is growing." Daniel gripped the doorframe, his knuckles white. He had lived his whole life on this farm, and never once had he thought about what existed beyond the stars. But now the stars were reaching for him, and he knew he could not escape. He turned back to her, his voice steady but firm. "If we're going to survive this, we'll need more than trust. We'll need a plan." Her glowing eyes locked on his, filled with fear and hope all at once. "Then we plan together." The lantern flickered, shadows shifting across the barn walls. Outside, the sound grew louder, the night heavy with danger. Yet inside, for the first time, Daniel did not feel alone. The next morning carried a strange weight. The sky was clear, the sun golden over the fields, yet Daniel felt no peace. Every sound seemed sharper, the crow of the rooster, the creak of the barn door, even the crunch of his boots on the dirt. He kept glancing at the road, half expecting the silver ships to return. Inside the barn, Saris remained hidden under blankets and shadows. Her glowing marks were dim, but her fear had not lessened. Daniel fed the cows and carried buckets of water, but his thoughts stayed with her. Each step reminded him that his farm was no longer just a farm. It was a hiding place, and hiding places never stayed secret for long. By mid-morning, Daniel heard it, the steady roll of tires on gravel. His chest tightened. He wiped his hands on his shirt and walked toward the sound. A black car was making its way up the dirt road, its windows dark, its frame shining unnaturally clean for country roads. The car stopped just outside his wooden gate. Two men stepped out. Both wore dark suits, their faces stern, their eyes hidden behind sunglasses. Though the sun was still low, they carried no weapons openly, yet everything about them spoke of authority and power. One of them smiled thinly. "Morning, sir. Daniel Miller, isn't it?" Daniel's throat went dry. "That's right. Who's asking?" The man pulled out a badge, flashing it too quickly to read clearly. "Government business. We're conducting a routine search. Nothing for you to worry about. We just need to look around your property." Daniel's grip on the wooden gate tightened. "What exactly are you searching for?" The second man stepped forward, his voice flat. "There was a report of unusual activity in this area last night. Strange lights, possible unauthorized aircraft. We're making sure nothing dangerous landed here." Daniel felt his stomach twist. He forced himself to stay calm. "I didn't see anything." The first man tilted his head, studying him. "Are you sure? Folks in town mentioned you keep long nights on your farm. Thought maybe you noticed something out of the ordinary?" Daniel shook his head. "Just the usual. Cows, corn, fences falling apart. No spaceships." He tried to laugh, but it sounded thin. The men didn't smile. The second man adjusted his sunglasses. "Then you won't mind if we take a quick look? Barnes Field's house, just procedure. Daniel's heart pounded. Behind him in the barn, Saris was hiding under layers of blankets. If they stepped inside, if they so much as lifted a tarp, everything would be lost. "I do mind," Daniel said, firmly. He straightened, his voice stronger now. "This is private land. You don't get to search without a warrant. That's the law." The first man's smile faded. For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then he said, "Sir, refusing us only makes you look suspicious." Daniel leaned on the gate, meeting his eyes without flinching. "Then call it suspicion, but you're not stepping on my land without papers." The two men exchanged a glance. Something cold passed between them, and Daniel felt his skin crawl. Finally, the first man nodded. "Very well. But remember, hiding information from the government carries consequences." They stepped back into their car, the engine roaring to life. Dust rose as the vehicle rolled down the road, leaving Daniel standing at the gate, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. He didn't move until the car disappeared beyond the hill. Only then did he breathe again, his chest heavy. Inside the barn, Saris peeked out from the shadows, her glowing eyes wide with fear. Who were they? Daniel shut the barn door behind him and pressed his back against it. "Men who claim to protect this country, but I don't trust them. They knew something happened here, and they'll be back." Saris shivered, pulling the blanket tighter around her. "They serve the hunters, I can feel it. The hunters use people. They make them obey. If those men return, they will not stop at the gate." Daniel rubbed his face, his jaw tight. He had lived through droughts, debts, and storms, but nothing like this. He was now standing against something larger than governments, larger than laws. He moved closer, kneeling so his eyes met hers. "Listen to me. If they come back, I'll protect you. But you have to help me understand. What are we really up against?" Saris hesitated, then whispered, "The hunters do not work alone. They have servants, spies, even on your world. They spread lies, they make deals, they promise power in exchange for obedience. Those men you saw, they are only the beginning." Daniel felt the barn tilt around him. He thought he had stood firm at the gate, but now he realized the fight was larger than he had imagined. Before he could speak, a sound rolled over the farm. Not tires, not cars. This time, the deep hum of the hunter's craft returning. The barn walls trembled as light flickered through the cracks. Saris's eyes glowed brighter, fear and determination mixing in their light. "They are closing in. We do not have much time." Daniel stood, his fists clenched. He had turned away strangers with badges, but now the true hunters were at his doorstep. His farm was no longer just a home. It was a trap, and he was caught inside with her. Night fell quickly over the farm, and the silence of the land was broken by a hum that made the ground itself tremble. Daniel stood at the barn door, his lantern dark, his eyes fixed on the horizon. Strange lights moved across the fields like searching eyes, sweeping side to side with cold precision. Saris crouched low in the shadows, her glowing marks dimmed by her own effort. Though faint lines of light still pulsed across her skin, she looked weaker than before, but her fear had sharpened into resolve. "They are closer now," she whispered. "We cannot stay inside. If they surround the barn, there will be no escape." Daniel's chest tightened. He had never run from anyone on his land. But tonight was different. Tonight, hunters not of this world moved toward him, and their search would not end with locked doors. He grabbed his old shotgun from the wall, even though he knew it was nothing against ships and machines. Still, the weight of it gave him courage. He turned to Saris. "If we move now." She nodded weakly, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Daniel opened the barn's back door slowly, careful not to make a sound, and together they slipped out into the dark fields. The corn rose tall around them, swaying in the night breeze. Daniel pushed forward, his hand firm on Saris's arm, guiding her through the rows. Every few steps he glanced at the sky. Bright beams swept across the fields, cutting the darkness into pieces. Then it happened. One of the lights locked onto their direction, stopping suddenly, as if it had found something. A low shriek tore through the night, sharp and mechanical, and the hum grew louder. "They see us," Saris gasped. Daniel's pulse raced. "Run!" They broke into a sprint, tearing through the corn. Stalks slapped against their faces, leaves crackled underfoot, and the ground shook as something massive descended nearby. Behind them, shadows moved fast, tall figures, their forms, shifting like liquid metal under the beams. Saris stumbled, and Daniel pulled her up, refusing to slow down. "Keep going," he urged, his voice raw. The hunters moved with terrifying speed, their footsteps heavy, their voices a blend of growls and static. Strange darts of light shot past Daniel, searing holes into the corn, burning the stalks into ash. He ducked low, dragging Saris down with him, and the two of them crawled through the dirt until the light beams swung away. For a moment, there was silence. Then the ground shook again. One of the crafts landed at the far end of the field, its surface glowing with shifting colors. A hatch opened, spilling out more figures. Saris's voice shook. "We cannot outrun them. They will corner us." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Then we use the land." He knew these fields better than anyone. He turned sharply, leading her toward the old irrigation ditch that cut across the corn rows. They slid down into the shallow trench just as beams swept past overhead. Hidden by the earth, they crawled forward, their breaths ragged, their bodies pressed against the cold soil. Above them, the hunters spread out. Their voices echoed in a language Daniel could not understand, but every sound made Saris flinch. Her markings flickered, glowing against her will. "They can feel me," she whispered, her tears glistening faintly. "I cannot hide forever." Daniel gripped her hand tightly. "Then I'll keep them off you as long as I can." They crawled until the ditch ended near the tree line. Daniel pulled Saris into the woods, branches snapping under their feet. Behind them, the hunters roared, their metallic voices carrying through the night. Suddenly, a beam of light cut through the trees ahead, blinding and sharp. Figures moved, to block their path. Trapped. Daniel raised the shotgun, firing into the light. The sound was deafening, echoing through the woods. The shot scattered sparks across the metallic figure, slowing it only for a moment. But it was enough. Daniel pulled Saris to the side, shoving her through a gap between the trees. The chase grew wilder. Beams sliced through trunks, branches exploded into splinters, and the ground erupted under the weight of strange machines. Daniel's lungs burned, but he kept moving, dragging her along. Finally, they broke into an open field near the riverbank. The water shimmered in the moonlight, fast and dark. Saris staggered, her strength fading. "I cannot keep running." Daniel turned, seeing the hunters closing in from both sides. His chest heaved, his hands trembling around the shotgun. There was nowhere left to hide. But Saris straightened slowly, her glowing marks burning brighter than ever. Her eyes locked on the hunters with a fire Daniel had never seen before. "They will not take me again," she said, her voice steady now. Daniel stared at her, realizing this was no longer just about hiding. Something within her was about to awaken, something the hunters feared, and something that might be their only chance. The night air grew hotter, charged with an energy that shook the grass around them. The hunters slowed their steps, their glowing eyes fixed on Saris as if they understood what was about to happen. Daniel gripped his shotgun tighter, standing at her side. Whatever came next, he would not leave her. The chase had led them here, to the river's edge where escape was impossible and confrontation was inevitable. The river roared in the dark, its waters crashing against the rocks. Daniel stood at the edge, his chest heaving, sweat dripping down his brow. The shotgun felt heavy in his hands, but beside him Saris was no longer weak. Her glowing markings burned bright like fire, casting strange light across the field. The hunters closed in from all sides. Tall metallic figures stepped from the shadows, their bodies shifting like liquid steel, their glowing eyes locked on her. Behind them, the strange craft hovered low, its hum shaking the ground, its beams cutting through the night. Daniel knew there was no escape now. The chase had ended. The fight was here. Saris straightened, her silver hair flowing in the wind, her voice steady. "They came to break me, but they will not break us." Daniel tightened his grip on the shotgun, planting, his feet firmly on the ground. Then let's make them regret stepping on this farm. The first hunter lunged forward, its metallic arm stretching like a blade. Daniel fired. The blast tore through its chest, sparks flying, the figure staggering backward. It wasn't enough to kill it, but it slowed the creature. Saris raised her hand, and for the first time Daniel saw what she truly was. Light surged from her palm, not fire, not lightning, but pure energy. It struck the hunter, sending it crashing into the dirt with a roar of static. The other hunters hesitated, circling, their growls rising like a storm. They were stronger, faster, but for the first time, Daniel saw fear flicker in their glowing eyes. "Stay behind me," Saris warned. Daniel shook his head. Not a chance. The hunters attacked together, beams of searing light shooting from their weapons. Daniel dove to the ground, rolling into the grass, firing again and again. Each blast slowed them but never stopped them. Their bodies twisted, reformed, kept coming. Saris stood tall in the chaos, her glowing mark spreading across her whole body. The ground itself shook as her power burst outward, a wave of energy that knocked two hunters flat. But the effort left, her gasping, her knees buckling. Daniel ran to her side, pulling her up. "Don't stop now, you've got more fight in you." Her eyes glowed fiercely. "I am not afraid anymore." Together they faced the hunters as the night erupted into fire and light. One by one, the figures pressed closer. Daniel swung his shotgun like a club, smashing metal jaws while Saris struck with bursts of light that tore through the dark. But there were too many. For every one that fell, another stepped forward. The hum of the craft grew louder, its hatch opening wider. "They want to drag me back," Saris said, her voice steady even as she bled light from her wounds. "If they succeed, you will die too." Daniel gritted his teeth. "Then we make sure they fail." The largest hunter stepped forward, taller than the rest, its metallic frame glowing with crimson lines. It raised a weapon unlike the others, a spear of light crackling in its hand. The air burned as it aimed at Saris. Daniel didn't think. He charged. With a roar, he swung the shotgun, striking the weapon aside. The blast of energy shot past, carving a smoking scar through the riverbank. The hunter turned on him, claws flashing, and Daniel fell to the ground. Before the killing strike could land, Saris screamed. Her entire body erupted in blinding light, brighter than the moon, brighter than the stars. The hunters staggered, their metallic forms shaking under the force. The largest one tried to resist, its claws digging into the earth, but the light consumed it. Daniel shielded his eyes, but even through the brilliance, he saw Saris rise into the air, her voice ringing through the night. "I am not your prisoner. I am not your prey. I am free." The energy burst outward in a wave, crashing into the hunters, tearing them apart. Their bodies shattered into fragments of metal and shadow, vanishing into the night sky. The craft above groaned, its hum breaking, its lights flickering. With a final screech, it tilted and tore away into the clouds, retreating into the stars. Silence followed. The night was broken, the hunters gone. Only the sound of the river remained. Saris collapsed to the ground, her glowing marks fading, her body trembling. Daniel rushed to her, lifting her gently. "You're alive, you did it." Her eyes fluttered open, weak, but calm. "No, Daniel. We did it. Alone I would have fallen. With you I stood." Daniel held her close, his chest still, heaving. He looked at the empty sky, the stars returning to their quiet watch. For now, the hunters were gone, but he knew deep down this was not the end. Still, as he carried Saris back toward the barn, he felt no regret. He had chosen to stand, and in that choice, he had found more than survival. He had found trust, courage, and a bond that no hunter could break. The farm was no longer the same, and neither was he. And somewhere in the distance, in the dark stretch of stars, the hunters would remember the night a farmer stood against them and did not fall.